plus counties to go actually meet with you all and meet with locals that have survived these wildfires to really build this agenda that I'm going to talk about today. What better than having those often uncomfortable conversations after somebody's lost their home than to really formulate this agenda that gets to consumer rights, transparency for you, and regulations that are gonna incentivize folks to do the right thing and harden their home. And so I just want to commend all of you and thank you, all of you who have been able to make it to these town halls that we had. We've had several in Sonoma. So I wanted to share with you that really our collective challenge here is to make homes and businesses safer. Consumer protection has always been my top priority, and I'm really focused on safety and transparency, as I mentioned. I recently introduced new regulations that will make homes and businesses safer from wildfires, using really my existing authority to regulate insurance rates. And my action is really part of a larger statewide solution where we've included the governor, the legislature, local governments, homeowners, and businesses, really everybody doing their part in the good old-fashioned California way. You know, we are breaking new ground in the fight against these extreme wildfires, really driven by climate change, as we know, and with insurance really being part of the solution. I know, just stay with me. When I say with insurance being part of the solution, many people are like, they're the problem, and I get it. I absolutely get it. But we have to engage with them because unfortunately, I do not have the authority to force them to write insurance in certain communities. And so this allowed, you know, what I do have is the authority to really look at risk. And the Safer from Wildfires initiative really does a couple things. You know, with insurance, we know that when risk goes up, so does the price. And by making homes and businesses safer, we can bring the risk down and bring the cost down as well. But we need to reward consumers for doing the right thing. And my action really comes directly, again, from what I've heard from thousands of people who were seeing their costs go up, even when their homes and, you know, when they made their homes and businesses safer. My action is really focused on safety and transparency. And I do this really in three ways. So pricing, I'm requiring insurance companies to incorporate the Safer from Wildfire framework into their pricing, which will, you know, drive down costs for consumers when they take steps to harden their home and businesses. Time and time again, I heard from you, from consumers, I've done everything. I spent thousands of dollars to harden my home and I'm still being dropped. Or I'm not my insurance is still going up. Transparency, consumers will receive their property's wildfire risk score and a reason behind it. What's the reason for it? And my department will have oversight finally. Often, so many times, I get this from consumers. I got this letter, my wildfire risk score went up. How? What is this? Hasn't taken into account my mitigation that I've done. My neighbor who hasn't done anything has found coverage and I haven't, and I've mitigated my property. Well, guess what? Nobody has access to this data, not even my department. But we're gonna allow you to know what that and understand what the score is. And one of the important features of that is the right to appeal. Consumers will finally can appeal the risk determination. Insurance companies will have to submit new rate filings that recognize this safety. Again, giving you not only the transparency, but the right to appeal. How do I appeal this score? Can I have time to mitigate my property so that my score comes down and you can keep writing me an insurance product? So let me say this again. This has never been done by any state before. And we are really breaking new ground here on wildfire safety. This is why we have the support from fire chiefs who are on the front lines in Northern California protecting people, wildfire survivors like United Policyholders, who you'll hear from our amazing Amy Bach, and from the California Farm Bureau Federation, which represents our farmers and our agribusiness, who will also be helped by these lower costs. And so I'm proud to be here and finally share with you all the product of our collective work through our engagement, through these town halls that at times were a little testy because the Department of Insurance had never done this before. And I was like, no, let's get out of Sacramento, let's get out of LA and go talk to our neighbors, go talk to consumers that are suffering from these wildfires and hear from those experiences. So this agenda is really shaped because of the tremendous work that you all have done for coming out, having those conversations with us, and keeping us accountable as well. So I want to thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Lara. Pat Abercrombie, do you want to bring us through some of the questions?
Yeah, Commissioner, a couple of questions that came out ahead of the session. What opportunities currently exist for premium discounts or simply to ensure that homeowners don't get canceled based on performing defensible space and/or home hardening, both at the individual property level and the community level?
That's a fantastic question. So transparency is critical. I heard over and over from homeowners and businesses who had no idea there was a risk score for their property and no way to appeal that score. My regulations, again, require insurance companies to give you that risk score and explain how your property got that score. And for the first time, insurance companies will have to recognize wildfire safety actions you've taken in the price you pay for insurance. So this will encourage more people to become safer, which will save lives, reduce losses of wildfires, and improve competition for consumers and our businesses, making insurance more available. So again, bringing down that risk so that we're able to price that risk with now finally taking into consideration the mitigation, not only at the individual parcel level, but through the immediate surroundings of that property, but also the community-wide mitigation efforts so that you bring the risk for everybody down. Because the other thing I kept hearing was, well, I've done everything to mitigate my property, but my neighbor hasn't done absolutely anything. Or my property, is next to a city property that might be abandoned that has all this potential fuel on it, or I'm a state park. And so all these different examples where now we bring in this community mitigation down and bring the risk down and a community-wise, and then that is going to be taken into account in the pricing, which brings the cost down.
I've got another one. What can we do as individuals and communities to have lower insurance rates or to not get canceled? There are a lot of people in this area who've had their insurance rates become unaffordable, or they've been asked to mitigate their properties in unreasonable ways. They're very interested in understanding how the insurers will be held accountable to reduce rates for individuals and communities.
That's another great question. So, I really, for the first time ever, I brought together the emergency agencies in Governor Newsom's administration to create a new insurance framework for wildfire safety. This month, working with Cal Fire, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and other agencies, we announced the Safer for Wildfires framework, really based in fire science and endorsed by emergency leaders and the Department of Insurance. Again, this is you would think we had done this before, but this is the first time this has happened in our history. So the Safer from Wildfire has 3 layers of protection. First, protecting the structure. So what does that include? And we make it easy so that people understand what they need to do. And by the way, the insurance groups and associations were part of these discussions. So this is no surprise to them. And we actually got them to agree that we can all collectively agree that this brings down the risk of wildfire. So a fire-rated roof, upgraded windows to keep embers out, a 5-foot non-ignition zone around a home, and fire-resistant vents. That's for the protection of the structure. Second, for protecting the immediate surrounding. We know this, clearing under decks, moving combustible sheds and other outbuildings away from the structure, and complying with other state and local defensible space rules, including trimming trees, removal of brush and debris from the yard. We got this, a lot of this data from COPEs, from Firewise communities that have already been doing such an amazing job. And third, which is the innovative piece, is protecting the whole community. So we have multiple examples of community-wide programs. The Fire Risk Reduction Community Designation under the development of the Board of Forestry, for example. Firewise USA Communities in Good Standing, 500 in California today. Shelter-in-place designations. The community-wide part is critical, and I've heard from so many times from people saying that, again, I've done everything, but I can't, but my neighbor hasn't. And that's where, you can visit insurance.ca.gov. That's insurance.ca.gov to view the list today. I'll have my staff put that link on the chat. And the reality is that this costs money, even if you're available to do so, even if you're able to do the work yourself, I should say. So that's why insurance has to reward wildfire safety. We have already approved insurance companies that provide discounts, but many offer no discounts. When I took office, only 7% of the companies offered these discounts. Through my work, now it's 40% of the market are included in these discounts. With this regulation, we're gonna make sure that 100% of our market provide these discounts. So this is going to mean millions of dollars back to people. That's only going to grow over time as communities implement this framework and get safer from wildfires, and competition increases, which brings the cost again down. So I'm very proud of the work that we're doing.
I was dropped by farmers and now have California Fair. Is it possible that I might be able to get private insurance again with better coverage?
Yes, insurance companies are already moving in the right direction, but obviously not fast enough. According to our data, non-renewals fell by 10%. And which really means what we're doing is working. So we have to accelerate the wildfire mitigation that is necessary. So the Safer from Wildfires framework really gives a clear path to reduce that risk. So wildfire risk modelers have testified that their models can incorporate this mitigation. So that's a good thing. And under my action, there would be more businesses, homeowners, and communities making these investments in wildfire safety, greater community resilience, reduced losses from wildfires, and more access to insurance. I also just directed the FAIR Plan to give homeowners the option to purchase insurance policy that more closely matches a standard homeowner's policy. So people would not have to buy two separate policies to get the same level of coverage that they've had before. The FAIR Plan, which is controlled by insurance companies, sued me over this. The FAIR Plan argues that there is already an existing market because of homeowners can buy two separate policies to get this coverage. Well, you all know, and I saw somebody put on the chat, the FAIR Plan is way too expensive. And that for many policyholders in higher wildfire severity zones, there are few, if any, insurance options. So the trial court agreed with me and that I have the authority to expand this plan of coverage. But the FAIR Plan, is appealing the ruling. We will continue to fight them in court about this issue. But again, we want to make sure you have the option of one comprehensive policy so that we keep it as affordable as possible under the FAIR Plan. As we do these mitigations, you're gonna see insurance companies coming in and writing in these communities. Like I said, we already have a 10% decrease in cancellations, which means we're moving in the right direction. But I know we gotta go much faster.
I've got another one. Our insurance provider, Allstate, does not recognize the steps we've taken to protect our home. How can we get the insurance industry to recognize and create credits for doing the right steps to reduce the risk of wildfire on our property?
Got it. Making our homes safer helps a competitive market, and consumers win when we have choices and insurance companies are competing for your business. So when we implement these regulations, insurance companies must price your coverage, including specific home safety actions. Reducing wildfire risk to communities will increase that competition in those areas, and making your home or business safer will, of course, save lives, reduce losses, and drive the cost down. So like I said, we're starting to see the market correct itself. We just want to make sure that with these actions, we speed up the availability of insurance, which will bring down the cost.
I've got one more here. Do you expect insurance companies to require the 0 to 5 foot zone be non-flammable? There are people in my neighborhood in the city of Cloverdale who don't plan to do anything to reduce their home ignitability unless it's required.
Yes, absolutely, I do. Insurance pricing can be a really powerful incentive, even enhance the welfare of California. And so every one of us thinks about how a speeding ticket or a traffic accident might affect our insurance. Insurance also plays a critical role in incentivizing safer behavior. The same principle holds true to home and business owners. So the fact that there is a strong consensus among fire science experts that the removal of combustible materials in a 0 to 5 foot zone of a property is a critical step to reducing the spread of fire of that structure. So that is why the Safer from Wildfire Partnership really recognizes this as one of the statewide home and community hardening actions necessary to reduce wildfire risk. Once my regulation becomes final, we're thinking hopefully just right around the beginning of summer or midsummer, it'll be finalized. Insurance companies will be required to consider where that 0 foot zone is clear. I'm sorry if you can hear I apologize. This is what happens when you live in downtown LA and I forgot to close the window. So, once those regulations come into place, this is an inexpensive, but also an essential step to reducing the threat of wildfires in your property. So again, by engaging with fire science experts to develop these consistent approach for insurance sector incentives, we can now empower communities to work together to reduce that wildfire risk before disasters strike. It is not only safe for course, it's not even a safe course to take to protect our property, I would say. It is also the right thing to do for your community. Insurance companies must work harder to reward property owners that reduce wildfire risk through lower premiums, and my regulations will make sure that they do.
Getting a bit more hardening that I've already done.
We couldn't hear you.
Question, how do I report the hardening that I've already done by insurance company?
I would say if you have the hardening done and we want to see if your insurance carrier already provides these discounts, give us a call at our department or shoot us on our website at insurance.ca.gov. We have a live chat feature. We'll have an insurance expert contact you immediately. I mean, our waiting average is like 2 minutes. And we can see if your insurance company already covers these mitigation standards, and we can work with you on that. If they don't, and you're going to be covered within the regulation by this summer, we can also figure out where you'll fit in that, in terms of as soon as their insurance companies, we require them to file the new rate filings that consider and take the mitigation into account.
A question about when do you, the commissioner, expect these regulations to be finalized and in place?
So let me give you the quick just scheme of the timeline. So February 25th, we issued the regulation. We have an upcoming public hearing on April 13th. We're holding a public hearing in person in Oakland and also virtually via Zoom. So people can go to our website for more information. And the comment period ends on April 13th. Following April 13th, all the comments were received and will be reviewed carefully. Determine whether we warrant any revisions to the proposed regulations. And then the final approval of the regulations, if no revisions, are in place, or after the 15-day comment period, the regulation will go to the Office of Administrative Law for review and approval. The Office of Administrative Law has 30 days to review the file and approve or disapprove the regulation. And then, so my goal is to have the regulation approved effective by this summer. So we can have the new insurance company, we can have the new regulations be filed by the insurance companies. So once the regulations become effective, all insurance companies that consider wildfire risk when pricing the insurance will be required to file a rate application that complies with the regulation within 180 days. I know I threw off so many days and dates, but just know there's a method to this madness of these regulations. But like I'll tell you, as I was meeting with some of the vintners in Sacramento the other day, they're like, "You mean this is a regulation that's actually going to help me?" Yes, this is a regulation that's actually meant to keep you safe and help you. So that's more or less the timeline. Pat, I can't hear you.
What is the cost metric used to calculate the reductions in rates? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
And will all carriers be using the same metrics?
That's a fantastic question that I'm going to pass over to my team who's been working on these specific questions. Tony, are you on? Because that's a fantastic question.
Yes, Commissioner. The regulation is standard and it'll apply to all insurance companies, but it'll depend on the specific insurance company and the way they structure their rates as to, for example, what percentage might apply to for certain companies, for certain policyholders, depending on their past experience and the formula that they use. And they also have to follow a standardized formula under Proposition 103. So it's a standardized formula, but every insurance company's experience is different. So the percentage discount or credit might be different between different companies. So until they actually start the filings after the regulations are effective, we won't really know what each company's particular percentage of credit or discount will be.
So Tony, so this would be the same as how I mandated insurance companies to give people reimbursements on their auto policies, given that there's so many different nuances in different policies and policies are different, that why we required insurance companies to come up with their own formula. But we're going to collect that data to verify it, to make sure that it meets the criteria of the regulation, which the framework is the Safer from Wildfires is embedded, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I should also mention that you could also go onto our website today, and there's about 15 or 17 insurance companies that are listed there. And it shows you if they offer a discount or a credit, and the reason why. It could be a community discount for Firewise community, could be for different other safety measures in the home, and it'll list the insurance company. And so you can check on that also.
All right. Is that all the questions, Mr. Abercrombie?
Mr. Abercrombie with the bad microphone.
Well,
there is one more. There's one more. Where can I find a list of new home insurers for my area? Tony,
you wanna?
Yeah, there's a couple of
the website.
Yeah, go to the website, and Amy may have some other suggestions too. But we have an insurance finder there. You could go and put in your zip code, and it'll give you different in the type of product you need, like homeowners, for example. And it'll give you a list of insurance companies and agents and brokers also that are in your area that will be able to sell you that insurance, or at least see if they can sell you if it's available with certain insurance companies. So go to our website. We also have a list of all the insurance companies there with all their 800 numbers. And in addition to that, we have a shopping for insurance guide, and we have a coverage comparison guide too, where you can look at different insurance companies and compare the different coverages that each might offer you to see if they meet your needs.
And I would just say, I know I gotta jump off because you're gonna hear from the amazing Amy Bach, but I would also just tell you, please use us as a resource. We are here to answer your questions, not just fire, but if you have any questions around your life, health, automobile insurance, fraud, we have an extensive investigative unit and deputies who investigate insurance fraud. And as you can imagine, our seniors are, point blank, always the ones that are in the most dangerous positions to be frauded out of their life insurance policy. You can't even imagine the horror stories I've heard. So if you're gonna sign up for a new product, if you have any questions about a new policy you're gonna enter into, I love these like fuzzy wuzzy commercials from the insurance companies, but you're entering into a financial contract with your insurance company. We are here to help guide you and be on your side, to not take the slogan from one of them, but our job is to be the consumer advocate on your behalf. So call us on the website or chat on the website, call us. We speak multiple languages, and at least have one of our insurance experts help guide you on your insurance needs. Again, thank you so much, Priscilla and Pat. Look forward to hopefully seeing you all one day in person.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Tony, as well. All right, so really important information shared with us. Really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and move on to Ms. Bach.
Okay, let's see.
Lots of stuff going on out there, Amy, huh?
Yes, and I really appreciated all those kind words from the commissioner. And I hope I live up to those kind words. But I think, first of all, thank you, Priscilla, Pat, for everything you do for your community and your neighbors. It's so inspiring, for me to have watched your presentation and hear that there are 40 COPE groups, and to hear the ways in which you are reaching out to vulnerable populations and taking this really can-do, it's our community, we're going to do our part kind of approach. It's really inspiring and absolutely imperative in this situation in which we find ourselves with the drought conditions and with the insurance situation, and the imperative that's really on all of us to do our part, to make our homes and our surroundings, risk reduced. And so anyway, a lot of the things that have already been said really are very, very important. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and follow the commissioner, who is really, of all the years I've been working as an insurance consumer advocate in California, which is over 3 decades, I have to say that Commissioner Lara has a really unique feel for people, and a really, I think he really gets his mind around this kind of the situations that impact real people and their real lives, and has been quite proactive. So I think having him at the helm during this home insurance crisis that we're going through has been a positive. I think he's done a lot of really specific things within his authority to get insurers to come around, to recognize the hard work that people like you guys are doing in your communities, and to take a more measured approach instead of just completely dropping people and refusing to recognize investments people have made in time and money. So we all owe him a lot, and his staff, very, very responsive. So moving on to me and my organization and what we do, very often in partnership with Commissioner Lara's agency. We, in 2016, when there was the tree mortality crisis, and people were starting to lose their insurance because there was the massive die-off of trees along the Sierras, and insurance companies noticed it. The governor created a task force and to look at it and to figure out what needed to be done. It quickly morphed and sprung a branch called the insurance subgroup of the tree mortality crisis. And since that time, something like 2016, 2017, I have been part of a very kind of a loose coalition of people around the state who've been trying to tackle the problem of insurance companies reacting as a business does when circumstances change. They make a business decision, but it's affecting all of us in very challenging ways. And so there's been a lot of work going on for a number of years to try to deal with the situation. So let me see, I'm having trouble getting to finding the advance, but getting to the advance button for some reason. Hang on one second here. I'm going to stop my share just for a minute. I'm going to start it again. Hang on. Geez, what's the problem here? There we go. Okay. I was hemming and hawing. So UP, we're a 501c3, just like you guys. We have been around for 30 years. We have a track record of excellence and expertise in disaster recovery, but we also do a lot of preparedness work. Because when we go into an area where there's been a disaster, and of course in California, we've had a lot of them, and we're helping people get their insurance claims on track and working with our partners to do that. Many times we find that people are underinsured and or don't have the kind of coverage that they really need. And so we did launch what we call the Roadmap to Preparedness program pretty soon after we were founded, because there's a lot of lessons people learn the hard way after wildfires that we really want people not to have to learn the hard way. And so we do go out in communities and do as much education as we can. And Priscilla and Pat have been incredibly helpful in that regard in your area. So we're funded by donations and grants and a lot of volunteer labor. We say we're not for profit, not for sale. We don't take financial contributions from insurance companies because we want to maintain an independent voice, but also because a lot of the time we're out there telling people you probably don't have enough insurance, you probably should buy more. So if we were taking money from insurance companies, I think that would be a harder message for people to swallow, because it is kind of logical to think when you go and you buy an insurance policy and you know that the agent is earning a commission on the sale and the insurance company is earning, a profit on the sale, that they might want to sell you more coverage than you actually need. And so it's logical for people to think that. It's actually not really the way it's playing out in the real world. But anyway, we do not take money from insurance companies, but we do our best to solve problems collaboratively. And to take a really kind of, as much as we can, a peaceful approach to solving problems. And by that, I mean, we try not to go out in the press and say, insurance companies are evil. And, we try to really put out messaging that's pragmatic and realistic. And we try to engage insurers wherever we can in voluntary solutions. It doesn't always work. So anyway, we run these 3 programs, and as you all know, the property insurance market today, particularly outside of urban areas, in urban areas, it's pretty much fine. I mean, that's a relative term, but the market has not been in good shape. Options, as you all know, have been very limited. As the commissioner said, and I agree, we are starting to see little shoots of green coming out of the concrete in the situation, and we are starting to see the market loosen up a little bit. Part of that, I think, it's because It's been a couple years since we had another, one of our really huge ones. The Camp Fire was in 2018. That was, of course, a huge record breaker. But since then, the seasons have not been as bad as we all feared. And I think that's kind of been helping. I mean, there have been wildfires for sure since the Camp Fire, but they have definitely been smaller in scale. Obviously, the Caldor in Dixie, the fires that could have really decimated the Lake Tahoe region, we sort of dodged a bullet there. Many people were impacted, but not as bad as we thought. So that's been helping restore insurers' confidence. After all, they like to sell insurance. That's their business. So even though they have really thrown a major, and to call it a hissy fit is a bit kind of trivializing it, but they have thrown a pretty major fit the last 3 years or so. We know though that ultimately they do want to do business in California, no matter what they say. It's a lucrative market. And so anyway, so my organization as a consumer group has been working very hard to help people like yourselves contend with the situation. And our partners at the Department of Insurance, CDI, have been incredibly important in this effort because they, as you all may know, the legislature gave the commissioner the authority to impose moratoriums on non-renewals, but they are limited in time. So a lot of you probably have lost the moratorium protection because it's been, the last major fire in Sonoma, I want to say, was it anyway, Tony's here. It's one of the U's, NCU or one of them. So a lot of you are kind of back out there without that protection. It is either a year or 2 years, depending on whether you're in a county where there's been a declared disaster or whether you're near one. So in this time, as some of you have learned, your fast and friendly farmer's agent or your State Farm is their agent have not been able to help you very much because they only can sell you their company's product. Whereas the agents that sell for more than one, you can call them independent agents or you can call them brokers. The guys and gals that can put you with a Safeco, a Travelers, an AIG, for example, they've never been more valuable because they do have access to more of a menu. Although even independent agents have had a really rough go of it the last few years trying to place people. Fortunately, we have the FAIR plan. They are what's called take all comers. Definitely, the last resort option. It doesn't include liability insurance, and it is relatively expensive for the quality of the protection that you get. And if you really want comprehensive coverage, you've got to pair a FAIR plan policy with what's called a DIC, a difference in condition. And it gets expensive, and it's obviously, it feels like inefficient to have to pay, for two policies. Notwithstanding all these challenges that folks are having, keeping their homes insured at a price they can afford, it's still very important for me to get that message out to you and your friends and neighbors that avoiding being underinsured is still very important. And because 2/3 of people who lose their homes in wildfires find themselves short on their dwelling coverage. So even though we're here talking about mitigation and trying to get people the break they deserve when they invest in mitigation, it's still important to remind you all that your home, unless you've really had a conversation, with an insurer, an agent, and or a local builder in your area, chances are the amount of insurance that you have currently on your dwelling may not be enough for rebuilding in the event of a wildfire, and you do live in an area that has that risk. So I just encourage you to take a look at your coverage A in your policy, and then do the rough math. If you know what your approximate square footage of living space is, divide that coverage A number by your square footage, and see how much per square foot of insurance you would have to rebuild, and then talk to some builders in the area and find out, like, would that be enough? It's a challenging issue, but I just don't ever want to let it get out of your minds while we're talking about just getting any insurance at all. What has my organization been doing to help on this topic of getting you rewards from your insurance companies for the good work, that important work that you're doing? So, as I said earlier, when there was this tree mortality crisis that hit in 2016, and I started going up to Sacramento for regular meetings with stakeholders, including firefighters and state agencies, in insurance companies. We had this insurance subgroup of the tree mortality working group that was an official, Governor at the time, Brown project, and we would meet in this fancy room, and we were brainstorming. And at that time, we first heard insurance companies say the famous line, well, it's all well and good if you do things to make your home less likely to be damaged or destroyed, but if your neighbor doesn't do anything, then your home's going to burn. And I know that's a painful thing for all of you to hear, because I heard loud and clear, and I hear it all the time, when people say, well, I'm not going to, first of all, you don't tell me what to do with my property. I understand that to be a mentality, but then also, why should I invest in risk reduction if I'm not going to get rewarded for it from my insurance company? So we know that's a reality out there. And we also know that for some people, it's just not, they just don't have the resources to make changes, to limb high branches, or to make changes to their property, either because of they don't have enough money to do it, pay somebody to do it, they can't do it themselves, all that stuff. So with all those challenges, we still know that it's incredibly important that we that we address that point that this insurance lobbyist made back then. It's not entirely true, right? There are absolutely, I have seen many images of neighborhoods where every home is burned except for a few, and those homes do have features that made them more resistant. So that statement is only somewhat true about that if you're, that it's basically useless to harden your home if your neighbor hasn't. That isn't entirely true. And because I knew it wasn't entirely true, I said, I don't think we're going to sit back here and let this thing just kind of sit, because insurance companies were saying over and over, there's not enough data. There's not enough data. We have to go on data. If we believe that risk reduction, is effective, then okay, we'll act on it. But there's not enough data. Well, we started to look around and learn that in all these areas around California, around where the tree mortality crisis was hitting, that these small communities, these rural communities, what was happening was people would get a notice from their insurance company that said, we're going to drop you. And then that person would call their local fire department, or they'd run into the fire chief in the supermarket and say, I got this letter, can you help me? And these rural fire departments were sending people out to people's homes and saying, oh, okay, let's see, with a checklist, if you do this, 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 and this, we'll give you a letter that you can use with your insurance company to tell them all the things that you've done. And in many situations, just getting that letter and getting it off to the insurer was reversing the non-renewals, and people were having some success with that. And I thought, okay, that's good. That's great. If the insurance company is going to respect what a firefighting professional says, that's a great solution. But then as the crisis kind of worsened, and then we had the Tubbs and Atlas fire, and then we had the Camp Fire, those letters were not really working anymore. And there were too many of these non-renewals for the fire agencies to be able to, really go out every time and generate these letters. And it was just becoming a burden, I think, on a lot of these small firefighting agencies. They didn't have funding to do the certifications or to do that kind of legwork. But and then our insurance subgroup kind of disbanded, and an elected official from Mariposa County came to me. I ran into her actually in Sacramento, and she said, "Hey, do you think, Amy, could you restart this insurance group?" And I was like, "I guess, sure." And we got a modest grant. And so I started convening these regular meetings. And of course, we used, I shouldn't say of course, then COVID. So we started using Zoom, which makes it, of course, great in some ways, because we could get people from all over the state, to get onto these Zooms. And Priscilla and Pat have been part of that. And we've been having these regular meetings now for over a year. And with our group, our working group, we have some fire chiefs, we have fire safe council folks, we have people from the IBHS, which is a research facility that is funded by the insurance industry. They're based in Florida, the Institute for Home and Business Safety, IBHS. We've had some of their technology people. They test, they do real life testing. They will actually burn a house, if they'll build a model inside of this huge airplane hangar kind of facility they have, and they will subject model homes to various simulated disaster conditions, and they learn a lot, right? So they had been doing that for hurricanes and earthquakes and stuff for a long time, but they hadn't been doing it for wildfire. So we realized, okay, so insurers they say they need more data. Fine, let's work on getting more data. And then we quickly realized that, unlike in the seismic area, right, where we now know, if you bolt and you brace and you there are ways, and you could put, steel moment frames. There are things you can do to prevent an earthquake from wrecking your house. We knew we needed, there are standards, right? There are standards in place, and professionals agree. If you do A, B, C, then it's effective, right? But we realized quickly that there really aren't, and there's not an official standard for what constitutes effective wildfire risk reduction. Now, obviously, groups like COPE and they're a fire safe council, URA, and fire safe councils around the state, they have programs. So you do kind of have your own standards that you're going by, but there's no code, or there are building codes for new construction, but there are no standards for retrofits, remodels that constitute effective wildfire risk reduction. So the first goal of this group that we convened was to find consensus from all these people that are on the ground, just like y'all, saying, well, we're not going to sit around and wait here for, the cavalry to come. We've got to kind of be a little bit of the cavalry ourselves. And so, all this great kind of energy that folks like you are bringing, we wanted to learn from you. Okay, so what are the things you're telling people to do? What are the things you're helping people do? And then, of course, with firefighters and then with IBHS, we drilled down after a year of work, and we've been kind of a little bit of the thorn in the side of I don't want a thorn, but we've been trying to kind of move things along, because the insurance folks were like, oh, we're 2 years out, from having some kind of agreement here. And we're like, we don't all have 2 years, right? People need to keep their homes insured in the here and now. It's a mortgage obligation. So we don't have that kind of time. We got to keep moving. So part of our approach has been to just try to keep momentum moving. And the Department of Insurance has been a phenomenal partner in that effort. They have been part of our RAP group. They always have somebody on the calls, and they are using their authority to kind of, on a parallel track, keep this thing moving forward. So these are our goals: to increase home insurance availability and affordability, and reduce wildfire risk simultaneously, right? Support what y'all are doing, help we establish official standards, and then where we are now is building financial and technical assistance options for homeowners to make risk reduction improvements. And the ultimate goal is, of course, to incentivize more people to proactively reduce wildfire risk by making it easier for them to keep their homes insured and giving them a carrot, right? So that if you do this, you're gonna get a reward. So that's what we've been doing. Query, insurers' reduced appetite for insuring residential risks in WUI areas. Is it temporary or permanent? I don't have a crystal ball, but my feeling is that it's not permanent, that this situation is definitely not permanent. We can already see it's starting to shift, but I do think that I don't think that we're ever going to have the same level of choices for people, the same number of insurers insuring homes in the WUI as we had in the past before the drought. And I think it is kind of the new normal. I think we have to recognize that. And I think, people know that the days of paying under $1,000 a year for your home insurance in California are over. And that's just because the risk has increased, and insurance companies are businesses that make their money by taking risk from you and charging you in return for that. So anyway, my organization has been doing lots of proactive work, helping people sniff out what companies might be available to them. We have been doing ongoing surveys to keep our finger on the pulse of which insurers are still open for business. We've been identifying models for community-based risk reduction support. And then we are advocating every day in every forum that we're involved in. Myself, my staff, our volunteers, our RAP group members, we are advocating with the powers that be to get these standards in place, to bring more grant funding in, and to get the inspection and certification programs in place, so that just like, if you do a green building, you get this plaque and that says this is a certified LEED building, and it adds to the real estate value of that building to have that designation. We want people to get that same designation as a reward, both because it will again, we understand, that if you're going to ask somebody to put money in to making their home more wildfire risk resistant, then that's going to cost them money. They need to get that money back. And the two ways you can get it back are having your property value go up, and also being able to keep insurance on that property at a reasonable cost. So we want to, recognize the reality that people do need financial incentives and help to in a lot of situations to make the risk reductions that really move the needle. So we are working in this space all over we're working at the federal level as well. So we provide tips on what to do if you get non-renewed. We on our website for free. I would really ask all of you to, when you get a minute, log on to our website, uphelp.org, or put this link in and complete our survey. It will only take you a couple minutes. It's an ongoing data gathering effort that we have. You probably already know the lingo about the different terminology. That we're not talking about being canceled technically. Like canceled is when they drop, they say you're in the middle of the policy period, which is usually like a year, right? The contract goes for like a year. Canceled is when they drop you in the middle. Non-renewed is the term of art here for when your policy comes up at the end of the term and then and they tell you we're not going to insure you. And those of you who may now be with an insurance company you had never heard of, some of them may be what are called non-admitted, which is a certain kind of insurance company. And that's just how it is right now. So on our website, you can read our publications, you can watch videos. We've done a couple of consumer shopping videos that with experts talking about that exact question somebody asked earlier: how do I find the insurers that might be an option for me? We have a pilot going with what's called a B Corp. It's like a socially responsible company, the Matchup Insurance Finder. You can try it out. It's they have a network of independent agents that may be able to place you, and it doesn't cost you any money. And you can try it if you of course, we welcome you to give us feedback on your experience. And the department has a lot of really useful stuff on their website. They have the insurance finder that the commissioner and Tony mentioned. They have information on which insurers are offering discounts now. As the commissioner said, we are seeing, even though we need his regs, we need those regulations. And I encourage all of you to, shoot in a letter of support or email of support. And we put in the chat, there's a link there to how to do that. But the Department of Insurance's website is great. They have information on your rights, right? We offer information about the FAIR plan and what's the deal with the FAIR plan. This is some of the tools that the department offers, and you can see that they actually have a whole list of the insurers that may be an option for you. A reminder that now that the moratoriums are probably not in place in your area, if you do get a non-renewal notice, the insurer has to give you 75 days notice. We worked to help extend. It used to be 45. And obviously in this situation, a lot of people need much more time to find a policy. So this is just, I mentioned the DIC, the sort of patch that makes a FAIR plan give you complete coverage. And these are some of the options you can add that are within the FAIR plan, separate from the patch. This is the patch, the DIC. You can get different quotes on those. There didn't used to be a whole lot of those options in the market. Now there's a lot of DIC options. We have had some success in getting getting there to be a statewide standard for what constitutes a mitigated dwelling. Now it's a little confusing because there are now two labels that are out there. We put out and there's a third. I'm going to explain this to you. We put out a list of 13 steps. This is the list that our RAP working group put together after a year of work. These are the things that we identified as the effective steps, right? And none of these are going to be a surprise to you if you're a part of COPE. These are probably the exact same things that you've been taught make a difference. The Class A roof, putting mesh over screens so that embers can't fly into any openings in your home. If there's a fence, a wooden fence that goes right up to your home, you want to create space. You don't want it to go right up to your home so that could function sort of like a wick. You don't want that. Decks, making sure that you're not letting things build up under your decks, or you're not storing flammable things under your deck. You don't need me to preach at you on this. I think all of you know this probably by heart. But these are the 13 steps that we identified. And then we put this list out. We presented it because there's a state agency partnership that the department has spearheaded. We presented our list to them. They have acknowledged that our list was helpful to them. Then they put out their own list, and then IBH also put out their own list. So what's a little confusing, at least we've got standards out there, and there's a tremendous amount of overlap, right? We're the nonprofit group in the middle. That's our list. On the right is the government group, and on the left is the industry. Let's call it IBHS. That's they're supported by the insurance industry. So arguably, insurers will recognize their list, but by law, once the regulations hopefully will get approved that we've been talking about, insurers are going to have to not necessarily comply with every single one of these items, but they're going to have to recognize, they're going to have to adjust their rating plans so that they cannot charge a home that's been risk reduced the same as a home that hasn't, because that would be they'd be overcharging the home that has done something. So we still have a ways to go here, right? You got IBHS. They have now called their designation a wildfire prepared home. We don't have a designation because we're not trying to get in the business of being the certifying agency. The state agency partnership has their terminology, safer from wildfires. So it's okay that there's two labels out there. It's absolutely okay. The progress has been made. The standards are now out there. Insurers can no longer say, well, there's no yardstick here for us to measure. There's a yardstick now. So just to wrap up, and I really appreciate your patience and your time. What's the next step, right? Is the regulations, no question about it. And then the next step after that is getting programs in place for inspections and certifications, and then enforcement and making sure that insurance companies are actually following the rules. But while we sort of have to patiently wait for all these things to happen, there's still good stuff going on, right? Because insurers, they don't want regulation. They want to show that they can do it. They don't themselves. And you know what? Whatever they are going to do is, as far as we're concerned, it's a good start. That's fine. But at some point, they're going to be called to account for. So we already have at least 8 companies. I think might be more now that are giving some kind of reward. USAA started it 5% if you live in a Firewise community. Great. 5% discount's not really going to move the needle for most people, but it's a start. And a number of other insurers are now offering different kind of similar, either like a little break if you live in an area that has an active fire safe council. And then there are some insurers who are starting to offer things like we'll send, if there's a fire near you, we're going to send somebody up to spray with gel or that kind of thing. But look, we take a realistic approach to all of this, right? Insurers, are they gonna come in hearts and flowers on the department's regulations? I doubt it. There may be a bit of a tussle. That's why I encourage you guys to weigh in, because I think the department will need our support to keep those regulations moving toward being finalized. because insurers have a history of resisting being told what to do, but we need there to be official rules in place, because we don't want insurers just doing window dressing, offering what would be not really going to move the needle. And then just to wrap up, the most important, I think, thing that I am focusing on, or my team is focusing on, is how are we going to get the funding to people that really need it, and not just people, but groups like yours. And there's been a lot of progress there. There's a lot more money coming in through the pipeline for wildfire risk reduction. And, that's really what we need, right? This kind of a thing, spreading information, sharing information, and then, and at the same time, helping people in the here and now, deal with getting a non-renewal notice. So thank you again for your time and your attention. Please take our survey. And it's just been my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Amy. That was a really thorough, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I think the message that I'm getting is that the Department of Insurance has really moved mountains in that world of getting the insurance companies to sit up and take notice that we need to be more fair about this, that these mitigation efforts need to be recognized. What hasn't, there's a space in between that happening and that being effective. And to me, that space is that regulation piece that you're talking about. What is having your home certified? What does that mean? Who does that certification? And what is going to be recognized? Is it going to be communities that have CWPPs and Firewise, or is it now going to be adoption of the IBHS standards, that their certification program, or is it going to be, we have a local agency here who does certification of homes. So who's going to be recognized? And I think that those questions are still all lined up before we get to the place where we can say, wow, this has made a big difference in our lives. That's 100%. My sense. Am I right?
You're 100% right. And, IBHS, they seem to have a plan. I know that the head of IBHS apparently is in California this week, meeting with some of the fire chiefs. I mean, the logical thing, I think, on some level would be to give the fire departments more funding so they can go out and do the inspections and certifications. But and then there's also like private, commercial people who do property evaluations for like a refi or kind of a thing, or a loan, so probably it'll be some combination, I'm thinking. But, there's been a lot of I tell you, the IBHS guys, they came, they've come to almost every one of our RAP meetings. And there's just been it feels very positive and productive. Now, we've tried to float, we've had some meetings with insurers. We haven't really had that many insurer reps on the RAP calls. Honestly, we didn't invite them, and that may have been a fault of ours. But we wanted to kind of get this whole thing figured out, and then start to float, the concepts by insurers. And I think it's working fine. We've been having meetings with some of the industry folks, and we're not a regulator, so sometimes it's a little easier to have those conversations with them. But I think the insurers are feeling the pressure big time. They're feeling it from their customers. It's in the media. They're feeling it from even IBHS. Even though they're funded by insurance companies, the guy who runs it, Roy Wright, I mean, his family is from Paradise, so he really has I think a genuine passion for reducing wildfire risk, for the right reasons, right? To save homes and lives.
So moving to the chat. Sorry, Bub.
You take it.
Yeah, you're just hard to hear. So a couple of questions. One is, and this is about advocacy, which is a total reflection of the group that you're talking to, right? People that are really activated to do something.
Yeah.
So one question is, who are the key Sacramento legislators on this, and who is your state lobbyist? And then the next question is, can you tell us exactly what it looks like to pressure insurance agencies getting on board? What's the lever?
Well, my organization does not have the funding for a lobbyist, so we that's a would be on our wish list. We did get there's a gentleman named Joel Louter who was he retired from the Department of Insurance last year, and I immediately snagged him. And he's the rare person who retires from being he was a deputy commissioner at the department for a number of years, and he, I guess because he doesn't play golf, he was happy to. So he's been a really important part of the RAP initiative, and the Senator Dodd has been a friend. Assemblymember Wood has been a friend in Sacramento. They both have bills. Is Tony still with us? He may have a better answer.
Well, it's important for people to know because Wood represents our area.
Yeah, Wood
and Dodd is Santa Rosa, right? So
yeah, Wood has been good. I mean, he's trying. When we talked earlier about the Fireline score issue, and I had brought to him years ago, I said, something like the way that you can get your credit report, we need something like that for if an insurer has a risk score. But because like the credit report thing comes from a federal bill, federal law, we don't, I think it was kind of, we were looking for a way to do it. It didn't happen for whatever reason in the legislature, but the commissioners got that in his regs. Wood has definitely dialogued with us. Again, my organization is heavily involved in disaster recovery. So a lot of our resources go there. Like we're working in Boulder right now. So honestly, like I'm not the one who's completely up to speed on the SAC action, but I know like next week there's a hearing. I'm going to be there testifying in the state Senate. There's a hearing that people could tune into to hear maybe more about some of the bills that are pending, but definitely Dodd would have been and McGuire is great. They just, I think, competing priorities. For me, I was like, when people wanted to come in with bills that mandated discounts, I knew that the insurers were just going to fight that, like with every arrow in their quiver, saying, well, you don't have, you can't force us to give discounts if we don't have the science or a benchmark. And that's kind of why we went for the standards from the get-go, because we were like, well, let's get the benchmark in. And then they can't say that, right?
Yeah, so thank you for that. I just wanted to let people know that Lisa did drop into the chat how to register for the meeting on April 13th, so that people can partake in that regulatory meeting, I believe it is.
Yep.
You got some love in the chat, so you should look. Dan
I like love.
Yeah, Dan Grout left you a lovely note about how important your work has been as he's recovered from the fires in Mill Creek.
LMU, I knew it was LMU.
Yeah, so be sure and look at that and soak up some love because you deserve it.
I appreciate that, and I'm so sorry to hear that. I mean, just that's that people we say it's like the exclusive club no one wants to be a member of, and we have a lot of wonderful people that do volunteer work for us that went through the situation. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that we got so involved in this issue is because one of the women on our board lost her home in the Oakland fire, and she has been a tireless advocate in her community. Sue Piper, getting a bond measure through to do, they've gone through all this craziness about taking down eucalyptus trees and all this stuff. I mean, it's hard work, right? Getting your neighbors to pay attention to risk. You know, people have different kind of views, right? I think a lot of us like to put our heads in the sand. Otherwise, why would we live near fault lines, right? Anyway.
So there's a question about, again, just the advocacy piece of what can people do to help with the process. I'm hearing show up for the hearing. Are there ways that people could be involved with you guys and support the work that you're doing? Amy?
Absolutely. Join our mailing list is one thing, and, and help be our eyes and ears, right? So like, go on our website. You can look at the comparison chart I just showed you, and share information with us, like problems in progress, right? Things that you're doing, things you're learning about, real nuts and bolts of like helping, senior citizens or people who, English as a second language, how are you helping those people if you are able to, because again, it was those organic programs that we learned about that firefighters were doing in their communities that led to a lot of the momentum, that's okay. Right. We just need to, parlay that and build that out.
So we're just in our last couple of minutes. I just want to say that from a perspective of Cope Northern Sonoma County, our hope is that we'll understand, as I'm involved in RAP, you and I, I try to attend those meetings as much as possible, but be in the know about what certification programs, regulatory changes are happening, so that we can get the information out to all of our community, so that you as homeowners will know what you can do. And I would just say, what I'm understanding is the number one thing that you can do, besides look at that list of the roof and all those lovely things that Amy told you about, is really pay attention to the 0 to 5 zone around your house. Yep. Because we know that regulations are going to go into effect next year around that, that CAL FIRE will be required to do those assessments. Am I right, Amy?
You're right.
Yeah. So, I love the metaphor of start at your own home and work out. Because, when I first started this work, there was a lot of finger pointing about the person down the block who doesn't take care of their house. But in the meantime, people's 0 to 5 zones around their own homes are not very good, and they're not taking care of their own. So I would just say, use that 0 to 5, work from your own house out. And again, we'll do our best to keep everybody in the know about how these things are changing. And a great big thank you again to you, Amy, for coming tonight and sharing all your wisdom and experience with us. You're doing amazing work. Many thanks again to the Department of Insurance and for all the folks that are still hanging in with us from the department. We really appreciate your work and having our backs, because it's been tough up here in Northern Sonoma County.
I know.
So we've been hit hard by these babies. So these fires.
I know. And right back at you, thank you for the inspiration and leading by example. And Stephen, thank you for that plug I appreciated that plug in the chat. Just like you, we're very, we're an under-resourced, underfunded, small but mighty nonprofit, and we rely on the kindness of our friends, to kind of keep us posted. I mean, the department is phenomenal, but we need all of the work that you all are doing in your communities is really where a lot of the action is. So thank you all for doing what you're doing.
Great, and thank you all for coming tonight and being a part of this important discussion. I wish you all well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Amy.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Take good care.
You too.